Hi, everybody. Welcome to the At Hearts to Mom podcast. I'm Lauren Rose, and today's topic is parenting after we've had trauma in our lives. Our guest is Kaylee Grace, host of the Love Creates Freedom podcast. She's here to help entrepreneurs juggling parenting and trauma to find calm and passion instead of chaos and pain. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, this is a pretty deep and heavy topic. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and why this topic resonates with you.
It is such a deep and heavy topic. It's it's what I did because 4 months after my daughter was born, my mum got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she wasn't meant to make it until my daughter's first birthday. So that kind of sent me down a path of hell. Really, it's the only way I can put it, because I was a single mum. And I was already aware that I was going to be a single mum because my daughter's a donor. So it was a choice. But what I didn't know was that I would be doing this without my mum. And that kind of sent me on this shockwave journey. And I had previously done a lot of work. I had done a lot of shadow work, deep, intense internal work before getting pregnant. But with my mum getting sick, I then ended up with a really severe eating disorder and realized that my entire upbringing was based around punishment and shame, and that I spent most of my time punishing myself. And it's kind of really hard to explain, but it's kind of like I was addicted to the hit that my mum gave me. So I grew up to be a victim. I grew up to be my mother's victim, and I was a people pleaser. So as long as I was failing, then she had something to talk to people about. So I unintentionally just made it my mission in life to fail, so my mum could then talk to her friends and be in her martyr, because my mum thrived in her martyr. So it's like this really weird, messed up relationship that my mum and I had. And when mum got sick, that I realized that the foundation that I had built was my mum. So she was my foundation. Love wasn't my foundation. Safety wasn't my foundation, which it is for most people. My mum was my foundation. And when she passed away, my entire foundation disappeared. And I spent 4 years after she died just free falling, because there was no floor for me. And every time I went to try and grab something to stop myself from falling, it would just vanish. There was nothing. There was no safety. There was no base. There was no ground. There was nothing. And it has taken me a lot to build my own foundation, build my own safety, my own care, my own nurturing, my own love, building those parts inside of me that didn't exist. And I did not realize to the extent that they did not exist until my mum got sick, and then really didn't realize until she died.
Well, I'm really sorry. That's really hard. So, how have you noticed some of this unresolved trauma coming up in your own parenting?
So I have to say I've kind of been really lucky, because I did a lot of internal work in becoming the observer before I had a kid. And that has been an absolute gift, because now I can see my patterns. So obviously in the time, my daughter was 3 when my mum passed away. So the first 3 years of my daughter's life was watching my mum get sick and then die, and watching me get sick and almost die, because my eating disorder did almost kill me. And I was battling so much with my own lack of safety but I was so acutely aware of the damage that my lack of safety could do to my daughter, that when she was younger and I would be having these meltdowns because I was so scared, I would say to her, I'm not a banshee screamer, but I do talk in a really intense way. So when I'm having a meltdown, I would be saying to her, this is not about you. This has nothing to do with you. This is all about me. This is all about my trauma, but you are sitting in front of me and you are the catalyst for this. So you are getting it, but please know it is not about you. I am not doing this because I don't like you. I'm not doing this because I don't love you. And this is while I have all of this anger that is inside of me because I've just lost my shit. And I've seen myself do it. And I've seen her reaction to it. And also prior to, so I started doing this with her when she was probably about 1.5, where I would be having this narrative with her, where I would have this meltdown and keep saying, this is not about you. I am not losing my shit at you. I'm just losing my shit, but you are here. You're witness to me losing my shit. You're watching me do it. And then afterwards, I would sit down with her and we would talk about it. And she's 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. I've done this for years now. She's 8 now. So I've been doing this now for 6 years, where afterwards I would sit with her and I would say, was I an asshole? And she'd go, yep. And I'd say, I'm really sorry. This is not about you. I really want you to really understand. This is not about you. I'm not angry at you. You haven't done anything wrong. I am angry at myself. I'm angry at the situation that I have put myself in. I'm angry at what is happening with Nanny. That's what we call my mum. I'm angry at what's happening with Nanny. And there are just times where I cannot hold it in and it has to come out. And you are the only one here that it can come out to. And I still do that even now. I will still say to her, I don't lose my shit very often now because I have created. So it would happen a lot because I felt so unsafe. And it happened a lot because I was constantly punishing myself just for existing, because my upbringing was all around punishment. It was all around punish me for being happy and punish me for being sad. Just punish me. That's what my upbringing was. So it created this really deep pattern, which was just constant punishment. And there's no safety in that. I didn't grow up with a mum that said, I love you. I'm 47 now and my mum is gone. And I do not remember a single day where my mum said, I love you. There's not one. I don't have a single memory in my whole entire life where those words came out of her mouth. So and my mum was an alcoholic too. She became really full-blown alcoholic when I turned 12. And it just, it spews out into our parenting. And I think I was really aware when I was pregnant that there was absolutely no way my daughter was going to get through life without trauma. I knew that even before mum got sick, because she's my kid, because I went through trauma. I knew it was going to come out. And I knew I wanted to do it differently, but I also knew that I couldn't stop it. So I knew that I couldn't stop her from experiencing me having meltdowns because I knew I didn't feel safe. I just wasn't aware how unsafe I didn't feel until it happened. And so now I had a moment last week because our house is an absolute mess, and it's a mess because I have an 8-year-old that believes everything that is inside drawers should be outside drawers. And I had a moment where I was walking around the house and I'm saying, I can't live in this house anymore. I cannot live like this. Like, we live in a hovel. I cannot live like this. But then also in my head, I'm hearing, you do realize that this is the story that is coming from your childhood because your mom said the same things to you. And only she would walk around with a plastic bag and pick everything up and throw things into a plastic bag and then put it out at the rubbish bin. And I have constantly said to my daughter, I do not want to be the parent that punishes you. I don't see the value in it. I don't see the value in taking something off you to try and get you to do something you do not want to do. I do not see the value in walking around with a rubbish bag and picking everything up and throwing everything out. I do not think that is going to get you to do what I want you to do that you do not want to do. But I also need you to understand that you live in this house with me. There is you and there is me. And I said, I love you and I respect you and I want to make sure that you are happy. So I feed you. I help you get dressed in the morning. I dry you off after the shower because you want me to. I take you places because you ask me to. I do these things because I love you. I do these things because I respect you. I do these things because I value you. I want you to do the same thing in return to me. I want you to make the bed because I've asked you to, and because you value me, and because you love me, and because you respect me. I want you to unstack the dishwasher because I've asked you to, and because you love me, and because you value me, and because you respect me. And you know that these things are important to me the same as I do things that are important to you. So I'm trying to teach her from a very different perspective of, I do not want to use punishment as a way to get my kid to do things for me. And it is frustrating and it is a long road because she's 8 and we've been having this conversation for 3 years, but she's also 8. And so I keep, and I say to her, and I say that to her, I say, honey, you're 8. You're not doing anything that you're not supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to want to make the bed. You're 8. You're not supposed to want to unstack the dishwasher. You're 8. Like, these aren't things that are just in you to want to do. Some kids want to do it for sure, but you don't want to do it. So I have to figure out, how can I communicate to you without using punishment to help you understand how important this is to me, because I cannot do this myself. And it's the long road. It's the long road of communication, and it's constant. The easy road is do this, or I'm going to pick up your shit and throw it in the bin. Do this, or I'm taking your tablet away. Do this, or we're not going out this weekend. That's the easy road. That's the short road. But that's also the punishment road. And that's the road that hurts your kid's heart. And that's the road that breaks their hearts. And that's the road that means that they end up being a kid who grows up constantly feeling like they should punish themselves because they're not good enough.
Yeah, and you're talking about punishment. I think I don't want people to hear that it's wrong to give our children consequences for their actions, because sometimes that's the necessary thing. Not always, that is not always the right answer. But when I hear punishment, what I think is blame, shame, and pain. So not trying to correct somebody's behavior to make them a better person, but to try to make them feel shame or to feel pain, or so it's a whole different behavior set than just giving a child a consequence. You didn't go to bed on time, so I'm going to make sure you wake up early the next morning, or you having something taken away, or whatever it is. Punishment is completely different from just healthy consequences for children. And so I can see that punishment has been a big part of your life. When I was doing some research on how parents who have experienced different types of trauma or any kind of trauma parent, one of the big themes that I was seeing was that we are often controlling or overprotective, because when you've had trauma, it's about a lack of control, or, like I've always felt, it's a lack of control, or how I've always felt, a lack of power. So as parents, we want to maybe overprotect our children, and that's what I see myself doing a lot of the times. I wouldn't consider me a controlling parent by any stretch of the imagination, but I do consider myself sometimes a more protective parent than maybe the average parent. And yeah, some of that comes from my trauma that I've experienced in my life, that sometimes people can be dangerous, and fears from trauma that other people have suffered, losing a child, or having a child kidnapped or whatever, so, or having a child drowned. So I do see that in my own life, because I was wondering, as we were preparing for this topic, how has my trauma affected my parenting? And definitely, I think being more protective and trying to shelter her is a big one. I've also done a lot of work on myself though, so I am very careful as I parent and as I even exist in my marriage, not to let my trauma affect everything I do. I mean, sometimes I have to go take a break from a situation because it is stirring up something in me that reminds me of my trauma. But I am very careful to minimize the effect that my trauma is going to have on my child. I mean, she's 10, and so she's still very young and malleable. And I definitely don't want to just screw her up because, of how I've been screwed up.
Well, let me save you on that. There's no way that she can't get away without having something. Like
Yeah.
you can't control everything so much that your kids don't get damaged. And there's so much freedom for me in going, you know what, my kid's not going to walk away unscathed. She can't. It's impossible. But what I can do as a parent is teach her the skills to be able to deal with her trauma when she gets older. So she has been raised acutely understanding about the voice in her head. And she calls it her mean voice and her angel voice. And she's so aware that how much that mean voice in her head wants her to go down this path that's going to make her feel worthless, that's going to make her feel bad, that's going to make her feel terrible. Because she'll come out, she'll be watching something on her tablet, and she'll come out and she'll say, oh, I just watched something. And I go, and she go, she said, I kind of wish I didn't stop it. And I say, okay, so what made you keep stopping it? She said, oh, that mean voice. It just kept saying, just watch it. Just watch it. It's okay. Just watch it. Just keep watching it. I said, so you heard the mean voice. You saw the mean voice and you did it anyway. And she goes, yeah. I said, what was the angel voice doing? She said, oh, the angel voice said, maybe don't watch it right now. Maybe wait until later. Maybe wait until mum can sit down and watch it with you. And I said, so you made the choice to ignore the angel voice and listen to the mean voice. And she went, yeah. I said, how did that go? She said, yeah, not well. And so for me, because I understand and because I've accepted that she's not coming out of this unscathed, and because I take responsibility for the fact that I am dealing with trauma, she is going to have to deal with trauma. My mum had to deal with trauma. And I want to parent completely differently to the way my mum did. I am very open with my daughter about what I've been through. I'm very open about the abuse that I got from my family. I'm very open about the fact that my mum's an alcoholic. I'm very open about the fact that I feel scared in this world. I'm a single mum and I homeschool my kid. I cannot hide anything from her. I couldn't hide my eating disorder from her. I couldn't hide how sick I was. I couldn't hide any of that. And I also didn't see the value in hiding any of that from her either. But what I did was I never made her feel like she was the reason I was this way. And I've also made sure that she knows that it's not normal. So I've made sure that she knows that when I used to have panic attacks, and thankfully I went through an incredible process that has unraveled my panic attacks. And I would share with her when I was going through a panic attack, this is not normal. There's something broken in my brain that is creating these panic attacks that I have not yet figured out how to stop. And I'm constantly talking to her about the voices in my head. I'm constantly walking around. And if I get stuck on something and I'll sit down, and if I'm going down the I'm not worthy rabbit hole, and she'll come out and she'll want a hug or something. And I say, I'm not sure I can right now. That voice in my head has taken me down into a really dark place and I'm having a really hard time to get out. And she'll look at me and she'll go, well, why did you listen to it? I'm like, I don't know. Because that's all I know how to do, but I'm trying to do something different. And so I am constantly making sure that she is aware of how that voice impacts her, and also so in my belief system, this entire world, this entire external world is designed to keep us in separation. And so everything that you do, if you go at it realizing that it is designed to keep you in separation, then you can look at it from a very different perspective and go, okay, well, how can I find oneness in this experience? How can I find oneness when if I'm hearing about something that is horrible? So we have people at the moment in our community, these guys that are stealing cars, changing number plates and breaking into people's houses. They're doing it en masse, and the police, as far as I can tell, aren't doing anything about it. People are taking photos of these guys as they're driving down the road with other people's stuff in their cars, yet police can't find them. It's weird. But seeing that, it's okay, so that is automatically going to take me into separation. That's going to take me into my fears. That's going to take me into, I'm a single mom, I'm here on my own. That's going to take me down that rabbit hole. What if something happens? What if something goes wrong? What if they come here? What if they let the dogs out? What if the cats get out? What if they kill the dogs? What if they, my brain's going to go there if I let it. And I'm aware of that. But now what I do is I see it and I look, because I've created that separation between, so for me, there's my thoughts, there are my feelings, and then there's me. I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my feelings. I'm me. So I sit here and I look at my thoughts and I go, yeah, I don't want to go down that path. I really appreciate you being there. And I know that you are a program that comes from my childhood, from me not feeling safe, being raised, but I don't actually have to go there. I do not have to go there. And that is also what I'm teaching my daughter, is if she has something come up and she'll be upset about something, and I'll say, okay, well, what were the voices in your head telling you? And then she'll tell me, I say, okay, so do you think it's true? Like, do you really believe that about yourself? No. Okay, so why do you think you have to believe the thoughts in your head? Like, if it's not true and they don't define you and they don't actually, they're not real, you know they're not real. You know they're not telling the truth. So why did you listen to them this one time? What is the angel voice saying about you? And it is this, I am teaching her this. Gets into her 20s, and when she gets into her 30s and she's in these situations, because this entire world is designed to keep us in separation. It's designed to try and keep us identifying with our thoughts. And it's trying to keep us identifying with our feelings. And it's trying to make sure that we stay feeling as bad as we humanly can, because people who feel bad about themselves are not empowered. They're not in a place of strength. They're in a place of weakness. And when someone is in a place of weakness, then they're easily controlled, or they're easily manipulated to buy this thing, to go down this path, to purchase the new pair of shoes, because the new pair of shoes are going to make you feel good about yourself. Purchase the new handbag because the handbag's going to make you feel good about yourself. But there's no power in that, believing that all of this stuff in the external world is actually going to make you feel better about yourself on the inside. So the work for me in parenting, without letting my trauma get in the way, is understanding that there are voices in my head that are telling me lies every single minute of every single day to try and make me feel like a worthless sack of shit. And I get to choose whether I believe it or not. But it's taken me a minute to get to that point where I can now see that voice and go, I don't have to listen to you. There was a time where that voice was me, where I really believed that that voice was me, where I identified with it so strongly that I really did think I was a worthless sack of shit. And the feelings that I have that make me feel really bad, I really identified with those. And if I felt bad, it would stop me from doing whatever I was doing. And it would send me on a very, very dark, dark spiral into hell, because I really identified with the feelings. Now I'm at a point where I don't identify with the thoughts. Now I look at them and go, yeah, okay, a nice try. I appreciate you trying, but you're not getting to me today. But good job for trying. The feelings are a little bit harder because sometimes they're so intense. Sometimes the feelings are so big and they're so loud. It's really hard to look and go, this is not me. This is a feeling from my past. This is a part of me that is so damaged, that is in so much pain. And it's sometimes hard to look at that and go, it's not me. It is just a part of me. But that is becoming easier, because now what I do when I have a feeling is I will look at it. And this is one of the things that I teach my clients, is that I will look at it and say, in this moment right now, I am feeling this. And I will look at the feeling, and the feeling will dissipate. If you look at it and you say, in this moment right now, I am feeling this, it will dissipate. And it's not about getting rid of the feeling. It's not about trying to make it go away. It's not about trying to stop it. For me, it's simply about acknowledging the fact that it's there. It exists. It's real. But I don't identify with it. And that's what I'm teaching my daughter, is that she doesn't have to identify with those thoughts. Those thoughts are not her. They're thoughts in her head. And I do that also. Something else I did when she was really young was, if she did something, so let's say her behavior was something that you would deem bad. I'll use the words good and bad because it's easier. If she did something that I deemed bad, then I would say to her, I am not mad at you, but I am a little bit annoyed by your behavior. So I created that separation, because my upbringing was, if I did something bad, then I was bad. And I was so acutely aware of the damage that that can do when you, again, you're identifying with the punishment. So to create that separation, I made sure, and afterwards, every single time I would get annoyed at her about something, I would say to her, I still love you. I am not mad at you. A little bit annoyed by your behavior, but I'm not bad at you. I still love you. And that has been really fundamental, because now if I lose my shit, she'll sit there. And then at the end, there are some times where, like, I do have these moments. I'm human. I have trauma. Can't stop it. Where I have these moments, and then she'll look at me afterwards and she'll go, Mum, you're kind of an asshole. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I can see that I am, and because I believe in being fully responsible for my reactions, and I believe in being fully responsible for my behavior, and I believe in understanding that she might be the catalyst, but it is my trauma that's creating the reaction. Because there are other people who wouldn't care. Like, as I'm looking around, she spent all this morning with chalk drawing a she's built like this big cubby house, a massive cubby house. She's gathered all the furniture, stacked it on top of each other, made this massive cubby house. And then with chalk, she's drawn this path that she's been scootering around on the floor. And I look at that and I think of some people I know who would absolutely go off their nut if their kids drew with chalk on their floor. And I look at that and I think, yeah, I could be annoyed about it. Or I could realize that my desire to be annoyed about something that she's done is actually my desire to punish, because I have that punishment in me. And instead I look at it and go, yeah, she's having a good time. And I kind of want to be clear that through making the choice not to harshly punish my child, that does not mean she gets away with anything. I have such rigid boundaries. They're so strong. But my boundaries are around kindness. I will not tolerate any form of meanness. She's not allowed to be mean to anybody. She's not allowed to bully anybody. If she'll come to me and say someone was really bossy and they were, they weren't really nice, I say, okay, so let's take a minute to think about, if that kid is being bossy, where do you think that's come from? How do you think that kid has become so bossy? Imagine what their upbringing must be like. Sorry. Imagine what their upbringing must be like if they are that bossy so young. And then I'm teaching her to bring compassion into understanding that if people are being mean to her, it's probably because they have somebody bigger than them, probably a parent, usually a parent, that is being mean to them, and they don't know how to deal with it because they're this little person. So then they come with this information of this is how you treat people in the world, and then they treat her that way. And I'm teaching her, instead of reacting and being mean back, I have a very, very strong boundary around always choose kindness. And if that means turning around and walking away because that is the kindest thing that you can do for yourself, then turn around and walk away. If that means pushing somebody back because they're physically pushing you, and the kindest thing that you could do in that moment for yourself and them, because they've backed you into a corner, is to push them back and walk away. I'm teaching her to always choose the kindest route, not the meanest route. And I see it in kids all the time, especially when we're at the park, more so when we're at the park because we homeschool. But when we go to the park, there are kids who are just mean. They don't know anything about kindness. Mean is their choice. And I look at that and I just think, I just feel so bad for them. I feel for how they are being raised to think that that is the best solution for them. And I have very strong boundaries at home. So we swear in our house. I swear like a trooper. And I don't restrict my daughter. She's been swearing since she was about 3. It was just after my mum passed away, actually. I started swearing in front of her because I got to this point where I just thought, I can't censor myself anymore. It's exhausting. I'm trying to deal with an eating disorder. I'm trying to deal with the grief of the death of my mum. I'm trying to be a single parent. I'm trying to do all of these things the right way. I can't censor myself. I need to lose my shit in a way that I can actually do this. So I swear a lot, but I have a very strong boundary. She's not allowed to swear in front of any friends. She's not allowed to swear at me. She's not allowed to swear at herself. So she's not allowed to use it in a derogatory way, but we use it in a fun way. And so there's kind of, you get to choose your fight and you get to choose your battle. And for me, my fight is more around, I want to make sure she grows up kind, and I want to make sure that she grows up feeling safe. And I want to make sure that she grows up knowing that she can come to me with anything because I won't punish her if she makes a bad decision. And all of these things are things that she gets to experience now. And if I punish her for things, then when she becomes a teenager, she's probably going to lie to me because she's going to be afraid of being punished. So she's going to lie to me. Whereas right now, there are times where we've had kids here and they've done things and I've walked in and I've said, did you guys do this? And the kids automatically go, no. And my kid looks at me and goes, yeah, we did. And I go, thank you, honey. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at any of you. I'm a little annoyed at your behavior, but I'm not mad at any of you. And so I'm teaching her that she can feel safe coming to me because I'm not punishing her for it. I get a little annoyed at her behavior, but I'm not punishing her. And I'm hoping, and I guess I'm going to know when she goes through being a teenagehood and she ends up being an adult, how all of this has impacted her. But right now, I see it so clearly because when we're at the park, she's always the one that goes up to play with the kid that doesn't have anyone playing with them. She's always the one that walks away when kids are being mean and comes and tells me about it so I can do something about it. She's just nice. She's just so kind. But I also am constantly saying, because I undo things a lot. And so when I do kind of say to her, look, I need you to unstack the dishwasher, I'll say, I don't want you to do it because you're trying to be a people pleaser. I don't want you to please me, but I want you to do it because you value me, not because you want to please me. Because again, I don't want her growing up to be a people pleaser. I don't want her grow, and I do give her the choice of saying no. I say, you can say no. Absolutely, you can. But I get to choose how I feel about that too. And how I feel about that is okay. And how you feel about that is okay. And there are times when she was younger and I'd ask her to do things and she'd look at me and she'd go, no, thank you. And I go, okay, fair enough. That's your choice. And so it's like this constant juggling of what fights do I want to fight? What battles do I want to have? What values do I want her to grow up with? And how do I ultimately want her to feel about herself so she feels safe in this world to be who she is? And that is not an easy parenting choice when you are trying to do it while you have this voice in your head going, you need to punish her. You need to throw her shit away. You need to throw her in her room. You need to take her tablet off her. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to do this. And I've got this other voice going, yeah, you really don't. In 20 years' time, are you going to care that she didn't have a clean room? Like, does it matter? In 20 years' time, are you going to care that she didn't pick up her toy on the ground? Or are you going to care that you loved her? Is she going to remember that she didn't pick up her toy, or is she going to remember how you yelled at her? And the unfortunate thing is, I don't remember a whole lot of the good stuff growing up. I remember the punishment. I remember the yelling. I remember the screaming. I remember getting slapped in the face. I remember seeing my mum drunk. I remember all of that. I don't remember the fun. I don't remember much of the good times. I don't remember any fun when I became a teenager. I just remember lots of screaming, lots of yelling, lots of punishment, and lots of my shit getting thrown out. That's what I remember. I don't want my daughter to grow up remembering that about me.
Yeah.
That was a really long-winded answer.
Well, I agree with you that, we do need to choose our battles when it comes to what we, fight with our kids over, because no matter what, trauma, no trauma, the most important thing is our connection, our relationship with our children.
Yeah.
And so we have to, like you were saying, determine what values we want to implement and which ones we're willing to make a big deal over.
Mhm.
Because over punishing our kids is not going to make them better people. It's just going to make them fearful people and defiant people and lying people. And I also love that you are teaching her to be very clear that she is not her thoughts and she's not her feelings, and that even though she has a thought or a feeling, it doesn't, or well, really a thought, even though she has a thought, that doesn't make that thought automatically true. A lot of thoughts we have are not true. And that's that voice in our head, that mean voice that you talk about, which I love. I think I'm going to borrow that. And I also love that you take responsibility for your own behavior. So it would be fairly easy for people who have had trauma to say, oh, well, I abuse my kids because I was abused, or I'm irritable and scream at my children because I just had all this trauma. But the fact is, that can't be an excuse for our behavior when we're parents. We are adults. We're the ones that are expected to regulate ourselves and our behavior. And whatever we do, we're modeling it for our children. And so we want to be the kind of people we want our children to look up to and to model their own behavior after. So I think it's all, I mean, it all sounds just really good. And I also love your openness with her. I'm very open with my child. I try to keep it, age appropriate in some situations. And there, as she gets older, I'll give her more and more details about certain things. But when she asks me a question, I will give her an honest answer, whether I want to or not, whether it's hurtful for me or not. But I think that that's because the most important thing to me is my relationship with her.
Yes.
It's not trying to hide my trauma and all my hurts and my pain
Which
and
you
my
can't do,
feelings.
because it comes out in your
Somehow.
parenting. It will come out in
Yeah.
yelling, it will come out in screaming, it will come out in being a victim, it will come out in financial issues. It comes out in everything. You can't hide it. It's exhausting trying to hide it. And the biggest thing that that can come out from trauma is control. That need to control, and that need to control our kids. And then we think that we're protecting them, but we're actually controlling them. But the protection comes from that lack of safety that we have in ourselves. The fact that we don't feel safe in this world, we don't feel safe in this human body, we don't feel safe with our partner, we don't feel safe with our family, we don't feel safe with our friends, because our family are the ones that abused us. Or if you've been abused by your mom or your dad, there's this deep, deep part of you, especially if it happens as a kid, where you go, if somebody that was meant to love me could hurt me that badly, imagine what people who aren't meant to love me could do. And that creates such a deep feeling of just being scared. And if you're not willing to sit and own how scared you feel in the world, and then start doing the work to sit with that part of you that feels scared, you will control, and you will try and protect your kids. And the protection will come with a mask of, I'm protecting my kids to make sure they're safe. But that part is actually the person saying, I'm protecting my kids because I don't feel safe. I'm controlling my kids because I don't feel safe. And I control my daughter less now than I did before, because I feel safer in myself now. I feel a lot more safer in the world now than I did 5 years ago. I feel safer now than I did 2 years ago, because I've been doing more and more work with that part of me that doesn't feel safe. There's no way, if you've been abused by any family member, that you can feel safe in this world, unless you had someone else that took you in and helped you learn how to feel safe. But if you did not have that, then you can't feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, you have to control. You don't have a choice. It's not, you're not doing it on purpose. I don't mean you. A person isn't doing it on purpose. They're not doing it on purpose. They're doing it because they don't know what else to do. Because there's that tiny little part inside of them that doesn't feel safe, saying, I don't feel safe with my kid climbing that wall. I don't feel safe with my kid climbing that chair. I don't feel safe with my kid climbing that tree. What if something goes wrong? What if something happens? What if this? What if that? And there's just this constant part that goes on and on and on, and it doesn't stop because it doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, and definitely see that in my life. One of the people that traumatized me was a family member,
Mm.
and I see that coming out a lot because it, you know, I of course, like this person who I trusted my whole life
Mhm.
and I had no idea was a bad person. Like it was just so unexpected, and then so I didn't even know how to process that. I didn't know what to think about that. I have no frame of reference for a family member or anybody else being unsafe,
Yeah,
you know?
of course. And and as kids or teenagers or even as adults, we're not in a world where safety is the priority. You've got to have a look. We are not living in a world where it prioritizes safety. You look at the wars around the world, you look at the starving kids, you look at just going down the street knowing, especially depending on where you live, you could get mugged, you could get shot, you could get raped, your kid could get stolen. There are so many things. We do not live in a world that harnesses safety at its core. And so as adults, we have to do the work to create that safety within ourselves. And the only way to do that for me has been, this is something else that I started doing. This is actually what I got that ended my panic attacks, was sitting, when I used to get panic attacks, I would wake up in the middle of the night in a full-blown panic attack. I've called the ambulance on more than one occasion because I did think I was having a heart attack. I thought I was dying. I have called my neighbors to come over and sit with me because I was just so scared. I was so scared. And I realized that I needed to create that safety. So I went outside and I sat on the driveway and I put my hands on the driveway. And it's very similar to what I shared before, that in this moment. But for me, it was in this moment right now, I can feel my hands on the driveway. And I waited for that. Yep. That's true. That's the truth. I can. And for me, it was this series of saying very honest statements to myself. Yep, that's true. Yep, that's true. Yep, that's true. And that created this path in me where I could start to see what was true. Okay, yep, that's true. Yep, that's true. And then I was able to very, very carefully and very, very slowly start to bring in safety. Very slowly start to bring in safety. And it's not an easy process, because when you start going down the process of trying to bring in safety, that voice starts to get just a little bit louder, because it doesn't want you to feel safe. It's got this protection mechanism that is designed to protect you from anything that it deems unsafe, and it deems safety as unsafe, which sounds really weird, but it really does, because its whole program is to not feel safe. That's what it knows. It's just a computer that's been programmed to feel a certain way, and now you're saying, no, that's wrong. And it looks at you and goes, no, but this is what we know. So this is real. What you're trying to do is wrong. And it's just reacting to that. So you can get a lot of pushback. And this is what I support people through, is that pushback. Is how do you keep going when the voices in your head are pushing against you so hard? And how do you keep going? How do you create safety when there's so much inside of you that tells you that safety is dangerous and that safety isn't safe? And it takes a bit. It took me more than a minute. It wasn't a quick fix. But now I can actually sit here and say, in this moment right now, I feel completely safe inside my body, inside this home, and inside this world, and have a part of me that goes, yep, I actually do. But it's taken me 47 years to get here. And it's taken me, 45 years of abuse that I allowed to happen, because my abuse hasn't stopped. My abuser has not passed away. My abuser is still alive. And this family member is still, in their own way, abusing me by what they're doing. And it's very deep emotional abuse, and it's very hurtful, and I cannot stop it. I cannot change it. I cannot control it. I cannot make them not be who they are, because they are who they are, and they're doing what they're doing, and I cannot stop it. So I have to figure out, how do I feel safe even though that's happening? But that's where responsibility comes in. Is that's where going, even though somebody else is doing something, I don't have to feel bad about it, because you know what? This is my body. I'm a grown ass adult. I'm going to put my big girl knickers on, and I'm going to do something about it, because I don't have to feel the way I feel just because I was raised in an abusive family. I don't have to feel like a victim just because I was raised to be a victim. I don't have to feel like I need to control the world just because I felt completely out of control growing up because my mum was an alcoholic. I don't have to feel anything that I don't want to feel. And when you realize that, you are an adult and you get to choose how you feel about this life, then the journey starts. Because it's not as simple as going, okay, I don't have to feel this, so I'm not going to feel it. And then tomorrow you're going to wake up and it's going to be unicorns, rainbows, and daisies. It's not. Then the work starts. Because now you get to go, okay, I get to decide whether I want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. How do I not feel this? And then tools and techniques. And then you start watching different things on YouTube instead of watching Netflix or Hallmark movies or anything that you watch, and you sit and watch for 4 or 5 hours at the end of every day because you're exhausted. You start to go, this makes me feel like crap. I don't want to watch the news. I feel horrible. I don't want to watch these movies. They make me feel bad. I don't want to watch Marvel movies where everybody dies. It makes me feel bad. What else can I do? What other choices can I make? Then you start watching other things. You start watching things like, so things I watch is Ed Milet. Amazing man. Best gift in this world is Ed Milet. And I watch as many of his interviews as I can possible. Tom Bilyeu, amazing man. Marcus Aubrey, incredible man. A Diary of CEO, Stephen Bartlett, amazing man. Marie Forleo, amazing woman. These are people who are interviewing people who have gone through stuff and come out the other side. So you start making different choices. I don't have a TV. I don't spend my hours every day watching stuff. I used to. I used to come home from school and turn on TV and watch it until I went to sleep. I used to go to work, come home, turn on the TV and watch it until I went to sleep. That was my reality. I haven't had a TV since I was in my 20s. I made the decision back then. I did not want to watch all of these shows that are designed to make me feel bad. I decided back then I didn't want to feel bad. But it's taken me 20 something years to get to a point where I don't feel bad. But also back in my 20s, no one was doing this work. In my 30s, no one was doing this work. This is new. This shadow work, inner child work, connecting work, sharing work, aware parenting work, this is new. This is only all just really ramped up in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. So there's so much out there that people can access, but the first step is deciding you don't want to feel like shit anymore. That's the first step. That doesn't mean you won't feel like shit. But the first step is deciding you don't want to feel that anymore. And then seeing all the different ways in life where you do. The people that you spend time with that don't really make you feel very good. Well, what if you didn't spend so much time with them? What if you did something else that you actually felt good doing? Or if you don't know how to feel good, which was my problem, I didn't know how to feel good because I hadn't felt good before. It was, well, what's not going to make me feel bad? What can I watch that doesn't trigger a response? So movies where people die triggers a response for me. So I don't watch them. Stories, like real stories, real life stories where people have gone through really violent lives, but they visually show the images. I don't watch those. I watch Hallmark movies because nothing goes wrong in a Hallmark movie. They're simple. It doesn't trigger anything in me. So if I'm going to watch anything, it's going to be a Hallmark movie. And I know some people go, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But my goal isn't to please everybody else. My goal is, how can I get through this life right now until I'm all the way through all of my trauma? How can I just go through life not trying to trigger myself all the time so I can have a break from feeling bad? And now I'm at a point where I don't watch anything. I listen to things. I listen to shows like Ed Milet, Tom Bilyeu, Aubrey Marcus. I listen to these amazing people. There was one on Ed Milet the other day about Boss Lady Lee, and she has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and she was given 6 months to live in February this year. So she's not meant to make it to Christmas. She's not meant to make it until October. And I was listening to her interview and listening to what she was sharing and listening to how she's realized that her control and her trauma is what has given her this cancer. It's what has created it. And her realizing that if she created this, then she can uncreate this. And looking at it and kind of taking it on board, going, now that's someone that's taking responsibility for how she feels about herself. She's not sitting there saying, I've got nothing. I can't do anything. I'm going to be gone by Christmas, so I may as well hang up my boots and off I go. She's going, no, I created this. How do I uncreate it? And it's the same kind of concept of, well, I created how I feel about myself right now. So how can I uncreate it? Because while we can sit and blame our parents, for most people stopped getting, especially physical abuse, most people stopped getting physically abused by their dads, let's say by the time they're 25, because then they realized they could walk away. My emotional abuse from my dad stopped when I was 30 because he died. The emotional abuse from my mom stopped when I was 42 because she died. At some point, there kind of comes a point for most people, not everybody. There are some people that are still in it, very deeply in it. But for most people, we have these moments where we go, you know what? I don't have to be here anymore. I could move. I could actually get away from all of this abuse and start again and make a different choice. But it's hard because we're kind of programmed to believe that this is who we are and this is all we're worth, and we can't be any more than this. And it takes a bit to make the decision that you are worth more, that you are deeply worth more than what your upbringing and what the external world has defined you as being. But it's not easy. And I would never sit here and say, this is rainbows and daisies and fairy floss. It's not. I have spent 5 of the last 8 years sitting face first in the mud, with more and more mud getting piled on me in hell while I've been working through this. It's not easy. But the other side is just, I faced my mud. I faced my biggest fear. Not that long ago, it was only a couple of months ago, I faced my biggest fear, which was death, which was losing my daughter, which was what happens if my daughter dies? How am I going to make it through if she dies? And I faced that part of me that was so scared. It more amplified because my mum lost a son. So it's like very real. Also because my closest friend just lost her son a couple of months ago. So it was very real for me to watch them go through what they went through. And it is my deepest fear. And I sat with it and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I looked death in the eye and I went, okay. If that's it, then okay. I will get through it. I can get through it. I can come out the other side of the darkest thing that could ever happen to me, which would be my daughter dying. I can come out the other side of that and I'll be okay. And this feeling that I have had since the moment she was born went away. The fear that has been guiding every decision that I make, that has been keeping me in fear, that has been keeping me feeling scared, that has kept me feeling afraid of everything about having her, went away. And so now I'm in this position where now my question is, how can I love her? Because I don't know what that feels like. I don't understand what love feels like because I've never felt it before. I don't know how to do that. How do I do that? How do I love her? How do I feel love for myself in my heart so I can feel it for her as well? And I see it's the little changes. So for me, it's been, I've made the decision to only work between 7:30 and 11:30 now, every day. That's all I'll do. My afternoons, the computer's off, my phone is off, nothing needs my attention until 7:30 the next day. That's my choice because I realized that I would spend 8, 9, 10 hours on the computer and I was missing seeing her, and we're in the same house. And so I've gone, I can't. My love for her is making sure that I have time for her. So that to me is me loving her. It's the small things. It's not the big, like I keep saying, rainbows and daisies and unicorns. It's not that big love where your heart all of a sudden fills with love. And maybe that will happen one day. My heart fills with love and I look at her and I just have all this love and it just throws all over her. But that's not it for me right now, because I think that would explode my nervous system. For me now, it's feeling what's more important. Spending time with her, making sure I have time for her, making sure I have time for me. So now my days are, I work for 4 hours. I take an hour to do something for myself. Whatever that is, it might be doing a foot bath, it might be cleaning the house, it might be washing the dishes because I want the dishes cleaned, it might be doing some exercise, it might be doing something, but I take an hour for myself every day. And then I take 2 hours for her every single day where it is just her and I doing something together. And then we do an hour of walking the dogs. And that has made a difference for her, because now she's not on her tablet as much. She's not watching stuff as much. In the morning, she doesn't sit down and watch stuff until I get on the computer. Before, she was getting on the computer the second she woke up in the morning, she'd be on a tablet. She would be in bed and she'd roll over and pick up her tablet and say, Mom, can you get me food? What? And she'd be on a tablet. Now she's not. Now this morning, she was scootering around while I was getting breakfast ready, because I'm making different choices. I'm valuing myself more. I'm valuing my time with her. She is naturally, without guidance from me, making different choices for herself, because she's just bouncing off me. And that's how I know I'm moving in the right direction. That's how I know I'm loving her more, because she's showing me different actions that are better for her, I believe, better for her.
Right, that makes sense. We need to wrap up, but
This has been a long conversation.
well, I know, and like I said at the beginning, it's just such a deep and heavy one. So there's a lot to say. I mean, we could talk for another couple hours, I'm sure, but
We really could.
I think the biggest thing that I want people to leave this conversation realizing is that you don't have to let your previous trauma affect your parenting. And like you said, first step is deciding you want something different.
Yeah.
And then the second step is going to be do things that get you to that place, whether that's some kind of, EMDR work, some kind of therapy work, some kind of inner child work, whatever it is, something is going to get you to a better place than you are now. Because the most important thing is that relationship with your child. So we don't want our children to leave the house and we realize, oh, all of those times that I was angry and yelling and, punishing my child, that was just my trauma coming up. We don't want to do that to our children. So there is a different way. And I love that you're living proof of that. I think that's hope for everybody. So where can we find out more about you and find your podcast?
So my podcast is called Love Creates Freedom, which is on YouTube and Spotify. I think on YouTube it's under Kaylee Grace. So if you go youtube.com/Kaylee, which is KAYLEE, and then Grace, it will come up. And then on Spotify, it's Love Creates Freedom. And then my website is lovecreatesfreedom.com. And I am getting ready to create a coaching program for people who are going through things like panic attacks, flashbacks, memory loops, all those sorts of things, sharing with them what I have done to stop mine that have put me in a position where I can see past them now, because they're very debilitating. You can't see past a panic attack when you have them.
Absolutely. I love that you were able to control yours. I've gotten them too, and they're possibly the most unpleasant sensation that I've ever felt.
Yeah.
And,
But when you create that safety in yourself, they actually stop. You don't get them anymore because you feel safe. It's the unsafety that's creating them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any health, parenting, or life advice. For my freebie 30 ways to relieve pain without taking a pill, go to ithurtstomom.com/tips. If you'd like to email me, my email is ithurtstomom@gmail.com. I wish everybody a blessed and pain-free day. Bye.